Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Stronger Teams, Practical Ways to Support Employee Mental Health, brought to you by the FSB. My name is Rob Harrison, and I'll be your host for this webinar. Thank you for joining us. Whether you employ one person or manage a larger team, supporting employee well-being has never been more important. A mentally healthy workplace can improve engagement, productivity, retention, and overall business performance. I'm delighted to be joined today by our expert speakers, Denise Markham-Rowe, Executive Coach and founder of Open to Coaching, Jay Harrison, Head of Workplace, Wellbeing Programs at Mind. Later in the session, we'll also hear from Carl Laidler from Healthy Shoots, one of FSB's wellbeing partners. So today, we'll be exploring what psychological safety really means in the workplace, how small business owners and employers can confidently support employee mental health, practical ways to reduce stigma and encourage open conversations, how to recognize when someone may be struggling, simple actions you can take to create a healthier, more supportive workplace culture, and then resources and support available to help both employers and employees. During the event, please use the Q&A button throughout the session to submit your questions. We'll be answering as many as possible during the Q&A session at the end, including questions submitted in advance. This webinar is being recorded, and everyone who registered will receive a copy of the recording and any resources shared today. So, to start us off, I'd like to welcome Denise Markham-Rowe, founder of Open to Coaching. Denise, over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for joining the session. I am Denise Markham-Rowe, and I work in a dual capacity, both as a one-to-one life and business mentor and coach, and also I offer leadership training and development through the coaching, or also through an organisation called My Big Sky. I've worked at board level across creative agencies and technology companies over the last 25 years. And I'm known as a bit of a Swiss Army knife, because I know that when you're leading a business, you often have to wear many different hats, and you have to both be able to think strategically and pay attention to the small details. And I support people on their journeys now through their own leadership, helping them with a suite of tools from different coaching experiences to be able to really help themselves and the people that they work with and lead flourish. So in the context of today's conversation, I'm focusing quite a bit more on the leader, and my colleague Jay will talk more about kind of employees, because I do believe that, and thank you, Leah, for the next slide, that you can't really support everybody in your team unless you're in a good place yourself. So I try to work with people to really help them develop and to get the right tools in place for themselves and the company, so that you can be that pillar of strength for everybody and learn some skills that really help bring out the best in you and your teams. So one of the first things that we look at, particularly through My Big Sky, is something called the Well Calculator. And this is that really paying attention to yourself. We're all very busy. We're working at ridiculous speed. We don't eat properly. We have lunch at our desk and carry on working. And so what we try to get people to really think about is that really thinking about what you're putting into your body. A lot of people are quite good now at focusing on their health and their fitness, but are you really eating properly every day to give you the fuel and the energy that you need to do the things that you need to do at work? And are you drinking enough water? Are you sleeping well? If you're not sleeping well, what are you doing to try and improve those things? So working on yourself, we do something with health scores. For example, we should all be getting our cholesterol checked. We should all get our blood pressure checked. And if we've got any issues, actually making plans to improve those things. If we treat ourselves a bit like our own business, we would put measures in place to improve productivity, to improve profitability. So look at yourself in that way of how can I make myself as fit and agile and able as possible to do the job I need to do and be a really good role model for everyone else in the team. And also to help you start noticing when you get stressed, what that means. What does your body do? What does your behavior do so that you can learn to regulate that? And so on my next slide, apologies, I've had a technical issue and can't change them myself. One of the things, again, through some of the leadership training that we do is we look at people's behaviors. Now, the colours, the insights is a quick snapshot of what our tendencies are. But I believe that every good leader can work on themselves to look at their behaviour, not just on the good days when they're performing well, but what do you default to when you're not feeling great, or you've had a bad day, you've had a bad interaction with a client or a customer, and then to see how that will affect everybody around you. And once you start understanding a little bit about that, and understanding that someone perhaps in your team who is always asking lots of questions and all the detail, doesn't mean they're difficult. It means they're trying to formulate their own opinions in the most positive way for them. And if you can take that time to give them the information they need, you'll get much more out of them rather than just being frustrated and feel that they always want more from you. Or as well, someone might be what's known more typically as a red personality, which is kind of big picture, fast decisions, just wants to get on, isn't interested in the detail. And the issue is that if you overload them with information, you may bog them down and they won't actually get on and be motivated to do the things you want them to do. And one of the key things in kind of your mental well-being with your team is that you really take the time to build relationships and you get to know people personally so that you might really know what is motivating them. That's very different to just wanting that career progression. Someone may have challenges with elderly parents or a child that's just starting school. What's really ticking and going on for them in their lives at that moment in time? And if you know those things, you can be supportive, you can be understanding. That simple question in the morning of how is your mum today, for example, if you know they've got problems, that can really help people and make them feel really valued and know that you actually care rather than just, straight into work talk. And one of the skills that comes through working with a coach as well is that learning how to really listen to people, not just sitting there waiting to answer the question or to jump in with your view, but to allow your team to get the opportunity to speak. So you hear everybody's views. And that is something that's really key, and making sure you get the best out of the whole team. So then moving on to my next slide, this is something that's really important to help, again, reduce the stress levels of those in your team. If you get into a car, for example, and you're taking people out on a journey and you just say, I don't know where we're going, I don't know the way to get there, but hey, trust me, come along. That is really, really vulnerable. People need a map. So again, if you're a small business, even if there's only a couple of you, work on what your vision for that business is. What are your goals and what are the milestones that you need to achieve to get to those final goals? And if you can lay that out for your team and you can make them see where their contribution fits into that, that is amazing at giving everyone clarity. They've got certainty. They know what's expected of them. They know how they've got to deliver it, and they know where they're going. And you reward those milestones as you achieve those small steps. And it improves how everyone works with you enormously. And I think that's a really important thing, not to assume that everybody knows what's meant to be going on, because those assumptions create stress. People get confused. then you get disappointed and it starts to fall apart. And if you can keep everyone on track, that really helps with everyone's certainty. So on the next slide, that's really about not assuming you know what your team are thinking. One of the things that we can deliver through My Big Sky is this Gallup survey, which is a really simple 12 questions. And it's really good for you to reflect on this right now if you're thinking about it. You know, people at work, do they know that someone really cares about them at work? Do they have someone they can talk to? Do they know what's expected of them? And are there opportunities for them to learn and to grow? Are you building that pipeline for their career progression? And once you get the results of that really simple questionnaire, then you can start to really see what you need to do to improve your engagement. There's frightening statistics, and I'm sure you're aware of them, of how low employee engagement can be at the moment, how much churn people have of turnover of staff. And if you focus on the things that really matter to your team, you can improve things drastically. And I'm not just saying those things. On the next slide, you'll see that there are huge benefits to working on the engagement that you have with your team. I mean, incredible, 23% higher profitability, higher productivity, nearly 50% lower employee turnover, way lower absenteeism, and fewer accidents, which is really key. So all of those things, you can see those stats that have been built up over a number of years with Gallup really show that those investments that you make pay 10 times over, kind of really improving and supporting your team. And so what you want is a team that are committed, that stay with you a long time, that improve productivity, that are thinking on their feet, that are coming up with new ideas. They know they're going to be listened to, and that improves across the business. And the key is to get personal with your team as well, especially if it's a small team. So next slide, Blair, please. You need to think about your team, not just putting in place policies that you've pulled down from ChatGPT, or that another company you feel is doing, because it differs within your company. And if you can be flexible, because people have different requirements at different stages of their life. Some may need to be able to pick up school children. Some may need, as I say, to look after elderly people. You may have neurodiverse people in your team, and actually for them, working in a very bright lit office with lots of noise is not going to be the best place to get the best out of them. So really think about what can you do to support and encourage your team, but that works for them as much as possible, rather than it being a blanket offer. And something I see quite a lot of the time in businesses, they talk about, I'm doing mental health first aiders, I've got that in place. And they tend to give it as a badge of honor to middle management. But it's really the most effective when you can do those things with both the junior, middle and senior people, so that peers have people to go and talk to, and that they feel that they can easily do that in a confidential way. And that's a really effective way of making sure that you're keeping a check on everybody. And some people, you don't have to have big budgets, can do small things like a well-being fund, which could be go and buy a book on self-help, or go and visit a kind of nature reserve once a month. Small things that will help each of those people really benefit in their mental health. Just have a think about what those could be, and you can offer that up obviously to the company about what would be good for them. And again, a lot of companies are good at doing this, but really focus on that. How can you get teams to be collaborating more? The more people work together, the more they feel supported, the more they enjoy that collaboration and that creativity within their business. And the more that you can have mentors supporting people who've been there and done that before, it's a really valuable, cost-effective way of building your teams, building their health and well-being, and they feel supported by people who are there in contact with every day. And then my kind of final slide, really, well, almost final slide, is that you might be thinking, I can't afford to do these things. Budgets are really, really tight. And I would say that one of the things to look at, again, from a leadership point of view, before you start spending a penny on your team, is to think about what you can invest in yourself. Because if you invest in you as a leader and you learn some new tools, you get to talk to other peers who might be in similar companies having similar challenges, you will learn skills that improve across the business. If you are a better leader, you will be able to improve the engagement of your team. You'll find ways to get everyone collaborating. People will stay with you. People will feel more fulfilled. Your absenteeism will drop drastically, and that will be a real great return on your investment. And so on my next slide, again, I do appreciate it can be very lonely at the top. You feel on your own, you feel pressurized, you have to be that Swiss Army knife and do everything yourself. But as you start to grow a team, remember that there are places that you can go to get support. You can invest in coaching or a mentor, and really giving yourself that opportunity to have a sounding board, to bounce things off that are impartial, that's confidential, and that will hold that space for you and really hold you to account as well as to what you want to achieve and help you get there. And we also run these kind of non-compete and confidential peer groups where people can learn from each other, talk to each other about their challenges and work through them in a controlled and facilitated way so that you actually can come to sessions, get a real challenge resolved with other experiences in the room, which is different to networking. Networking is great. It builds up connections, but it doesn't build up those deep connections that allow you to pick up the phone to someone and say, I've got a bit of a sticking issue here. Can someone give me some advice? Can someone help? And as I say, with coaching and leadership, it's about supporting you through your own journey first. And then that means that you can cascade all of that down to support everybody else in your business. So I'm going to hand over to back to the FSB team and to Jay. I hope that has resonated with you in some way. And of course, I look forward to answering any questions as they come up later in the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing okay. Denise, thank you very much. That's all really, really valuable stuff. And a lot of what I'll be talking about kind of doubles down on what Denise was talking about. So firstly, who am I? I'm Jay Harrison. I manage an operational service for Norfolk and Waveney Mind, delivering frontline mental health support across this part of the county. Wherever you are sat today, there will be a local mind near you guys where there is a wealth of information, a wealth of support that you can access to look after your employees. So make yourself familiar with whoever that might be. So I'm gonna start with a quote from somebody only slightly wiser than me and Denise, and that's Gandhi, who once said, "Society should be judged on how it treats its most vulnerable members." Now, I'm not comparing small businesses to big global movements, and I'm not comparing you guys to world leaders, but I would argue that your business is a society because you have people, you have pressure, you have culture, and you have responsibility. I've always thought of business this way. Health and safety led the Industrial Revolution. HR took over as we moved to more office-based roles. But what now? Since COVID, everything has changed. Who takes ownership of staff in the new age of hybrid roles, flexible working, and mental health awareness? And the answer in small business is you guys. I want to pose another question. How does your business treat its people on their worst day? The answer to that one is a little bit harder, as it's not about branding or HR or policy. It's about humanity. So I want to take a moment just to think about the worst day. And who here thinks that they could plan and attend a funeral in 3 days? Because that's still the standard for compassionate leave policies in many workplaces. 3 days to organise a funeral, pick flowers, write an order of service, teach dad how to use the microwave, attend the funeral, grieve, and return to work like nothing has happened and that you are fine. If you've got that person in your team, send them my way because I'd quite like to hire them. But we call that compassionate leave. We've all heard that term, I'm sure. But if we're really honest, it should be called convenient, not compassionate. And not for the employee, but for the business. I did a seminar recently and I spoke to a business and I pointed out about the compassionate leave thing. And their solution was that they would change the name of their policy to a bereavement policy rather than a compassionate leave policy. But that's clearly not the answer. This is just one system that doesn't support workplace well-being in an age where our people will be the difference between success and failure. If we want more flexible employees, we need flexible approaches. And if we want resilient businesses, we must work towards creating resilient people to deliver them. That comes through modelling the behaviours that Denise has discussed. It comes through support and putting the human before the employee. Here lies the problem though. Somewhere along the way, workplace wellbeing became about perks. I saw a job advertised recently that promised pizza Fridays and a free fruit bowl under its wellbeing initiatives, but they're not wellbeing initiatives. It just screamed tick box to me and it completely put me off that opportunity. I was going to send it to my brother. He's looking for work at the moment. And I thought, no, this is not the right place for you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-pizza. If you were seeing more than just my head, you'd realise that. But in my experience, you can't carb your way out of burnout. And there's that age-old saying, isn't there? An apple a day keeps the doctor away. But when someone's struggling, grieving, overwhelmed, an apple isn't going to fix that. And if your well-being strategy is a fruit bowl, all you're doing is leaving a lot of banana skins on the floor. Deep down, we all know that real well-being isn't an initiative. And it comes from that word I mentioned in my introduction. It comes from culture. Culture is built in really small moments. This is how you respond when someone says they're struggling and whether people feel safe to be honest in those moments. It's in leaders like you guys modelling boundaries or ignoring them because sometimes that's just as impactful. Teams do what you say and they do what you show. So if we're serious about well-being, you need to focus on those everyday interactions because that's where well-being lives. It's not the big gestures. It's not ordering Uber Eats for the whole office. It's in the little small ones, like a simple "how are you?" and saying that whilst having time to listen and care. Policy, in my experience, should always be a framework and people should always come first because people are not written in ink. They're not unchangeable, they're not black and white, they are nuanced and complex and sometimes in need of compassion, support and empowerment. I had a really great example of this recently. I was at a conference and I heard from somebody called Cordelia Lineacre-Brown. She's absolutely amazing. She's a senior marketing executive for the Mars Corporation who do everything from Maltesers to cat food. Her brother tragically took his life and if the policy was followed, Cordelia would have been expected back in work within 2 working days. With an extra day added to that, how kind if she was the sole organiser of his funeral. Within that first week back, Cordelia would have made a decision on a £70 million marketing budget for Mars. Now, can we honestly sit here and say that she would have made the right decision? Thankfully, common sense prevailed and Cordelia was afforded 5 weeks leave and was supported back into work with a strong supportive plan in place. Not because the policy said so, but because it was the right thing to do for the human being. And that decision avoided long-term sick leave, poor decision-making, and the potential need to fill a vacancy left by an undervalued staff member who had taken their skills elsewhere. Studies show that over 70% of people would consider a change of employment if treated poorly after a bereavement, a mental health crisis, or reporting stress at work that leads to having time off. Because of compassion and flexibility, Cordelia now campaigns across the UK for better HR practices while ensuring that Mars remains an industry leader in supporting staff. So with that in mind, I want you all to just take a moment to think about somebody in your teams. I don't want you to think about your highest performer. I don't want you to think about the person who's struggling or the loudest voice in the room. I just want you to think about the one in the middle. The one who just shows up and gets the job done. Now take a moment to ask yourself, when was the last time you checked in with them? Not based around targets or to-do lists or deadlines. When did you just check in on them as a person? When was the last time you thanked them? Not in passing, just proper from the heart stuff with weight and meaning. When was the last time you noticed them? Because that's the risk. Those people can become invisible, not because they don't matter and not because you've decided that they're disposable. It's because they don't demand attention in an environment where your attention is already thrown in 100 directions. It's probably not because we don't care, right? It's because running a business is busy and it's hard and it's relentless. We battle rising costs, constant pressure, wars, news, supply and demand, and against it all, we try to keep things going. We recognise that businesses are battling all of that, but so are individuals. The people inside them at every level. Money, news, pressure, they face them all, and often quietly without anyone noticing and without a business strategy to guide them through it. I know that in recent years it's become harder. I really remember in my first job being told work is work, home is home, you leave home at the door when you come to work. But what happens when, for many of us, home is our place of work? It makes it harder to separate from external pressure and easier to hide within our four walls. That alone highlights the importance of checking in with your staff. Sit with it for just a second. Think of the last time you managed that. If you're sat there thinking, I can't remember when, that's not a failure. I'm not here to out you, but it might be a signal that you need to make that a small goal for the next month. Notice the small changes, those nuanced things that make your staff human beings. Some of the signs might be big and obvious if someone's struggling, but often it's the signs that require small moments, conversation, and subtle support that are quite often missed. So I'm going to double down on some of the figures that Denise spoke about. We've talked about the human case, but let's look at the business case as well, as this is equally as strong. Deloitte studies found that for every £1 spent on mental health support, there's an average return of £4.70. £4.70. If I sat and offered you that as a business investment, you wouldn't just take it. You'd probably bite my hand, if not my whole arm off. But this isn't about profit first. It's about people. And if we get that right, profit follows. In a small business, this isn't theoretical. If you've got a team of two and one person hits burnout or reaches mental health crisis, you've lost 50% of your workforce overnight. No buffer, no backup, and the domino effect within the team continues. It's going to affect your other employees, it's going to affect you. Take a moment to consider the cost of absenteeism within your business. How does this weigh up against small spends to keep people well? And that spend isn't always about money, like Denise said. In fact, I'd argue that for many of you, the cost would be your time. And I know we don't have a lot of that, but it's something we can make, right? It makes well-being not nice to have. It's about risk, it's about resilience, and it's about survival. So when we talk about workplace mental health, we're not talking about policies or perks or posters. We're talking about people and how we show up for each other on the best day, but most importantly, like we've discussed, on the hardest. Because in my experience, businesses won't be judged on its best day. It will be judged on how it responds to someone else's worst. So to kind of sum that up, well-being doesn't start in a fruit bowl. It starts with moments that you choose to notice someone who thought they might have become invisible within your workforces. Please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, guys, if you want to talk more about how you can be a compassionate workplace. Send me an email. There's going to be some time for questions, so please submit those. But for now, I'm going to hand from one Harrison back to another and pass you back to Rob. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And thank you both for your valuable insights. Before we move on to our audience questions, we'd like to hear briefly from one of Federation of Small Businesses Wellbeing Partners. Healthy Shoots provides occupational healthy support that helps employers address workplace health issues quickly and effectively, giving business owners practical support when managing employee well-being challenges. I'd like to welcome Carl Laidler from Healthy Shoots. Carl, over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Can you hear me okay? So Healthy Shoots have conducted in excess of 100,000 occupational health and wellbeing questionnaires, and we've also conducted in excess of 10,000 occupational health referrals and reports. We worked with the Federation of Small Businesses HR team for 10 years, and for the last 2 years is we've been providing a solution to members via the FSB website.
Well, that's a shame. I think
Have you got a problem with have you got a problem with my video?
let's check with the technical team. Guys,
Can you
can you help us with Carl Laidler's video?
It looks like your video is not working, but that's fine. We can just
Okay, is
continue
that
with
okay?
the
Can you still
voice.
hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, yes.
If you can hear me, that's fine, to be fair. I'm not much to look at. But so we've done 100,000 occupational health questionnaires and we've done 10,000 occupational health referrals. Our thought process is very much that it's very difficult to help your own employees if you don't know what's wrong with them in the first place. And we've created this range of questionnaires which start with new starter health questionnaires. We've got night worker, display system equipment, maternity, wellness care action plans, etc. And the key is to try to find out what health conditions your employees may have as early as possible so you can provide them with the support solutions that they may require. And that becomes increasingly important. And you may have actually more solutions available to you than you already think. You may well already have employee assistance programs and counselling in place. You may well have mental health first aiders, etc. But everything's becoming much more important when it comes to knowing the health of your employees and specifically the mental health. And the reason for that is the employee law world is changing. So previously, employers would have 2 years where they could employ somebody where if it wasn't really working out for them, then potentially they could find a way of ending that relationship, assuming the employee didn't have some kind of Equality Act issue. So in other words, something that fell under disability. As of very recently, in fact, this month, that's now been reduced to 6 months. So if you think about it, for the vast majority of people, it's only the length of their probation by which time employers have to work out whether this is going to work out for all the parties. And generally what happens when you're looking at occupational health is that people don't tell you what their health issues are until you actually have a performance issue, because there's often no real reason to know. So knowing what the health issues of your employees are from day one to ensure that you can put into place support services is going to become increasingly important, because we haven't got time to find solutions further down the line. We haven't got 2 years anymore. We've got 6 months. We've also got a series of other support products that are there to help employees. So we've got things like stress risk assessments. If you've got an employee that goes off with workplace stress, which is quite common, and you did an occupational health report, there's a very, very good chance that your occupational health doctor's report is going to say that you should do a stress risk assessment with your employee before you do anything else. And all that is fundamentally is a questionnaire that goes off to your employee that talks about all the issues that might be causing them stress. They filled in their half the form, it's returned back into you, and then you review to see whether there is anything that you guys can do to actually reduce that employee's stress. But if somebody goes off with workplace stress, which technically isn't actually normally considered to be a health issue, but a management issue, then this is going to be very important. The other thing that you'll get as part of the working with us is things like wellness care action plans, which is a form that you can work through with your employee to find out what's wrong with them, to find out potentially what treatment they're having and what adjustments the employer may have to put into place or could put into place to try and help that employee be a more healthy employee. What we've also done is we're trying to get members to talk about occupational health and wellness earlier, and not just be negative. Since occupational health can seem very negative, can't it? So what we've now produced, which will be going live in the next 2 weeks, is a range of questionnaires that come with toolkits for the employees. So if you spot somebody within your workforce that's struggling with resilience, which often is low-level anxiety, assertiveness, perceived stress, or they perhaps would appear to be in low mood, then we've got a series of questionnaires that you can send to your employees. They get a result back, but it also gives them a toolkit that they can work through to help them with some solutions for those different issues, particularly resilience, which is such a big one these days. You guys don't get the results because it's appropriate to the individual, and we want them to feel that they can answer the questions honestly. But we think that's going to be extremely important going forward, and especially if employers are going to have to be seen to be providing solutions and what they did to try to help their employees in terms of their mental health if things become significantly worse further down the line and you end up in a situation where the employee may not be fit enough to continue working. Then it's going to be really, really important that you've done everything you can do to try and support your employee. So those are going to be very popular, we think. And like I say, each of them comes with its own toolkit. And then we've got an occupational health triage form, which is one that is used when any of the members have anybody that's on long-term absence or they require any form of occupational health support. Then the member will complete an occupational health triage form. And off the back of that is we will then upload into the system, into the portal that everybody gets access to, either forms from mental health nurses, occupational health doctors that are qualified in psychology, or occupational health doctors who can develop frameworks that are going to enable both parties to move forward. But the great thing about this is that by using the triage form, we're able to work with the member to ensure they're going to get the best outcome. And that's the best outcome for both parties. It's been extraordinarily successful. I think we've done over 1,000 for FSB members over the last 2 years. The outcomes have been excellent, and without a shadow of a doubt, it would appear to have been a very successful solution for FSB members. So they're all available to you. You can find out about them on the FSB website, and they're available to all members, and everybody gets a free consultation to be able to discuss their cases or their occupational health and well-being issues before anything's uploaded into the system, before any cost is incurred. But it's there to support members. So we hope you find that useful. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Carl, very much. And I think we all know that as members, we often overlook the benefits that we gain from membership. So it's good to have some updates on those related to occupational well-being. So thank you indeed. We now have time for some questions from the audience. And whilst you have a think about that and add yours to the Q&A, which I'd encourage you to do, please. We've received some excellent ones prior to the event that we can pose to our speakers. So speakers, thank you for rejoining us. Appreciate that. So here we go. So first of all, a question for Denise. What is the biggest challenge around team mental health you are seeing at the moment?
Hard to say one thing. It's certainly people feeling that they are heard. So it's the embracing of multi-generational workforce, understanding the differences of those different age groups, and finding ways to get them to collaborate and bring the best out of them. It's interesting. You expect other things to be talked about as the biggest challenges, but I think that being able to work with people and bounce off people, with them being some working remotely, some in the office, some wanting to be in the office more than they're being allowed to be. So keeping that group dynamic going is often the biggest challenge, is where people leave to go and find another job where the team spirit is better, the culture is better. So that collaboration and culture is key.
Thank you, Denise. And I see Jay, you nodding vigorously. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I completely echo what Denise has said. I think what we're seeing now is a trend of, when we look at kind of multi-generational workforces, it's that the language is changing. The way that we discuss our own well-being, our mental health is changing. We're reducing that stigma by having conversations, but actually it depends where you sit within the business, whether you're in upper management or whether you're kind of front of house, that first point of call. But I also think there's so many factors that influence the way in which we talk about it. The one thing that I would say is co-production is king in this. Make sure you are involving staff in decisions about them. No decision about me without me, as they say in healthcare. That's hugely important, because actually, if staff at entry level can empower leadership to have healthier conversations, it's kind of a two-way street. We need to do it up and down the chain. So co-produce those policies, those ideas, those initiatives to allow everyone to use whatever language works for them about their mental health and well-being.
Thank you, Jay. And staying with you, if I may, what's the first thing a small business owner should do if they're concerned about an employee's mental well-being?
Do not bury your head in the sand. Do not think that it is not your responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility to keep each other well, whether it's your desk mate, your manager, anybody within that business can have a pivotal conversation. I'm a big believer in white flags before red flags. Throw your hands up and say, look, I'm really struggling at the moment, but also equally notice those nuanced little changes we were talking about. Notice people that are kind of withdrawing within themselves, because I would much rather someone receive support at that point than end up not in work, or not able to return to work, or worse. I mean, I run a bereavement service here, and we know that suicide rates, particularly in Norfolk, are very high. We don't want to reach that level. I'd like to see you accessing support than me putting support in place for family at a much later date. So white flags before red flags.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. And Carl, how can employers support mental health without feeling like they need to be an expert?
Well, that's a great question. So from our perspective, I think that there are support services available on our end anyway. So in other words, is if your members are working with us in terms of completing their occupational health triage forms, then what will happen is they'll be provided with some kind of support. So in other words, advice of what to do next in that particular situation. So if we will be talking to them about the potential of using the solutions they've got in place, like EAPs, they've got EAPs in place. But also, we've got people like mental health nurses that are in the background that can provide support. Like I say, we've got occupational health doctors qualified in psychology. So from that perspective, they've got a whole load of experts that are sitting around them as members that are available to them.
Thank you, Carl. And one from the audience with us today, and this is around framing. So I'll read it out. I feel it may be difficult asking employees to complete a mental health questionnaire, as this may be perceived as asking for more information than they are willing to provide. I appreciate this is done in the spirit of helping employees through making employers aware. However, I worry that employees may feel this may be used against them in some way. How can you frame it? How can we frame those approaches in a more, I guess, accessible way?
Can I answer that?
Please do. Yes, please.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, I think that's a really good point, actually. And it's one that used to come up a lot more, and I'm going to say a long time ago. These days, we find that, and we have done probably for the last 10 years, actually, employees are much, much more likely to be honest on forms. We've reached a different generation now that seem to be a lot more open in discussing their health issues, whether it be neurodiversity or whether it be mental health, for example. I'm almost staggered with how honest people are. And partly for that is I think they're actually expecting the employer to try to support them in some shape or format. So we don't see it in quite the same as we used to. But I do think that really a lot of that is largely down to the culture of an organization. If employees think that when they complete a form that they're going to get a negative response, then they're not going to be honest, are they? But if they feel like they're going to be supported and it's not going to be seen negatively and actually it's going to be a positive thing to do, then they will complete it honestly. And I think it's really down to the culture of the organization as to whether people actually complete the forms honestly or not.
And can I just add to that as well, that actually I think it's about where that entry point into completing those forms is. Denise mentioned about having mental health first aiders up and down the business. What I would say is if you're considering training anyone in mental health first aid at the moment, veer away from your HR departments, because they're the people that are engaged generally when somebody's done something wrong. So that then reinforces that stigma around accessing support, filling out those forms. If it's coming from somebody else in the organisation that isn't involved in a HR process, that's often a much better entry point into somebody being honest and having that conversation and breaking down the stigma.
Thank you,
Can
Jay.
I just add to that as well, because I think a lot of the time it's a big worry for people in small businesses, the cost of these things. Big organizations, can employ teams of people to look after people's mental health, their kind of well-being, their HR, have funds in place. And a lot of small businesses haven't got a penny to really spend on these things. So I think what leaders again can do is by showing that they're supportive doesn't mean they have to fund everything. It means that they're saying, I will relate to you on a human level. And if you are struggling in a certain area, if we can, and being open about the realistic situation of the company, if we can afford to support that by X, Y, or Z, we will. If we can't, we'll support you in you finding that solution and needing perhaps, a few hours off every week or other week to get that support. So, and I think that there's a danger there, and that sometimes maybe some employees expect too much to be solved, and that makes employers nervous. But if employers can explain, I can't solve everything, and as you said, they're not an expert. So it's like, if you're running a packaging business, you'd say, I wouldn't start, selling medical products. I'm not the expert in that, but I'll give you the time to find those things out. So I think it's just that the support that you're there for them doesn't have to mean that you will do it all or you will supply it all.
And reach out to your, I said at the start, I'm just one of many people like me that works for local minds up and down the country. You will have a local mental health charity. They will not all come to you with their hat in their hands wanting you to pay for services. I do lots of free talks for lots of businesses. If you throw on a bake sale, I'll be over the moon. But if you don't, that's fine, because actually what I want to do is, like I said, stop people entering into crisis services and reduce those pressures on the wider healthcare system. So if we're having those conversations, that's really, really important. So familiarise yourself with what's local to you and make use of those resources.
Good advice. Thanks, Jay. And coming back to you again, Denise, I think you've probably answered this to some extent, but there may be more to add to it. What are some common mistakes leaders make when discussing mental health at work?
Again, one size doesn't fit all. So as Jay was saying, it's you put the framework in place, but remember that it's human. So keep reminding people to just, come to you with their challenges. And for leaders to really improve their listening skills, because, as I say, we tend to jump to conclusions, think we think we've got all the answers, and actually, a lot of the time, and this isn't to simplify people's issues, being listened to and being heard and letting them work through the things that they need to talk about is key. If you listen much more, then then you can find the time and you can, probably work those things out with that person or help them find the things that they need to find. But yeah, create the framework. It's really important to have those things, but it's not one size fits all.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether it's Jay or Carl, well, Denise for that matter, who's going to answer this one, but how do you create psychological safety when teams are remote or hybrid? Any volunteers? Oh, Jay looks up for it.
It's a really, really difficult question. And I think it's so easy to allow people to kind of work in silo, isn't it, when we have people that are tasked in that hybrid way. I have a team that work remotely. I manage that particular service. We have daily huddles. We have daily offloads. I'm in constant contact with my team, not to oversee them. Like I said, it's not about me asking, what have you done today? What does your diary look like? Have you met these targets? Quite often it's just that really simple, how are you? What's going on with you? How was your weekend? And making time every week to do that with my staff, I hope empowers them to be able to come to me when something goes amiss. So it's about giving that just a little bit of time. We were saying it's not always about how much you spend. It's about your time. I know we don't have very many tokens to give when we're running businesses and managing teams, but that will be the pivotal thing that you can offer, is just a friendly face, a bit of time, understand what's going on with people, understand if people have got, issues with childcare at the moment, or relationship difficulties, or their car's broken down, whatever it may be that will have an impact on their well-being. If we can address that and allow self-care right from day one, that's pivotal for teams.
Carl, do you have anything to add?
Really, yeah, echo that. But actually, it's all about communication and ensuring that people don't feel isolated, which is very easy to do actually if you're sitting at home in not having communication. So I think communication is absolutely key.
Thank you.
And I would reinforce, and again, coming from an events background at times as well, experiential. I'm afraid it's fun, if you need everyone working remotely, you have to find ways to get people together in person from time to time. And one area that I think people really need to focus on, and I get quite concerned about this now from all the talk about AI and it doing quite a lot of low-level roles, is we need, as senior leaders, to really think about how we're nurturing the future leaders or the future senior managers. And it might suit a senior person to be remote much more than a junior or middle person. So really think about how you're going to help the career progression if everybody is remote. If people aren't able to sit in and learn how you interact with people. And I think what some companies do tend to do, if people are in the office, they'll let a junior person sit in on a meeting. So they learn how to speak to a senior client or how to deal with a difficult situation. We tend not to allow that if it's remote, because you kind of say, oh, you don't need to be on that call. Well, actually think about perhaps there is the same value in someone sitting in on some of your calls who may not contribute, but will be learning hugely from those interactions. So yeah, just don't always think about the remote as being good for the senior person. What's it doing at a lower level, and where's your pipeline of really good management coming from?
Thank you, Denise. And penultimate question, what low-cost initiatives can have the biggest impact on employee well-being? Denise is probably the first one I'd turn to for that.
Oh, again, if you're it depends if you're in situ or if you're remote. I love that, Jay, that it's not, well-being is not the fruit bowl. And it really made me, the classic is, yes, we offer fresh fruit because it sounds really healthy. So I think that's quite hard now if people are remote or not. And it might, it is, again, it's personal. For someone, it might be that they get, a really high quality chair to sit on because they're doing that all day and that helps with their health. And for someone else, it is that opportunity to say, come on, let's huddle together, once a week, even if it's in a cafe somewhere halfway, so they get that interaction. So I'm afraid it's really hard to answer that. Depends on the type of industry or company or what they're doing.
And remember that it doesn't have to be low cost. Sometimes it's no cost. I mean, if you're sat in an office right now and you've got a team there, we've just had all that lovely weather. Go and have lunch outside, connect with nature for half an hour, connect with your team for half an hour. That doesn't cost anything. Like I said, it's only time. And I know time is so valuable to all of us, myself included, but actually taking those moments, it's a small sacrifice that doesn't cost the earth. We don't have to run it past our finance department. We don't have to put it in our budget. All we need to do is just give that time. It's no cost, not low cost.
Carl, anything to add?
Yeah, well, the FSB has a fantastic health app of its own, which has got nothing to do with us, but is actually incredibly well priced and provides a lot of solutions within it. So I think everybody should at least take a look at that and consider that for their employees, because it'll provide a lot of solutions very quickly that will help their employees.
And I'm going to give you each a final task, which is in under 20 seconds, to leave us with one practical piece of advice that our audience could implement to improve well-being within their teams. What would it be? Start with Carl.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Find out find out about the health of your employees as soon as you possibly can. And then secondly, off the back of that, is that come to occupational health earlier. Don't leave it too late, because what happens at the moment is people tend to leave until it becomes critical, and there's an awful lot we can do to support people much, much earlier. So that would probably be my point, but I'm slightly biased.
Thank you, Carl. Jay?
If you are on this call, you already care about this. It's a little bit like preaching to the converted doing one of these things, but you are here, which means you care. All you need to do is ask someone how they are. Ask them twice. Give that space for them to be able to be honest with you. If you can do that, it's a bloody good start.
And Denise. Thank you, Jay.
Invest in yourself. If you become a better leader, all of these things will fall into place. You become better at engaging with your team, better at listening, better at planning the journey that you want your business to go on, so people have clarity. So invest in yourself. And as a woman, I would say women leaders are particularly bad at investing in themselves. They always put other people first. So think about that. Think if you could just improve your own abilities by 5-10%, what difference would that make across the entire business?
Super. Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. A huge thank you to Jay, Denise and Carl for sharing their expertise and practical advice. And thank you too for everyone who joined us and submitted questions. We hope today's session has given you useful ideas and confidence to create a workplace where people feel supported, valued and able to thrive. Everyone who registered will receive an email shortly with the webinar recording and the resources mentioned during the session. If you'd like to find out more about FSB membership and the support available to employers, please visit the FSB website. Beth will share the link in the chat. If you enjoyed today's session, we'd also be grateful if you could leave us a review on Trustpilot. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you at another FSB event soon. Have a great day and goodbye.